This is your daily briefing, and you're most welcome to it. MP Tracy Crouch has come back finally with her key recommendations for English football clubs. And I have to say, this is all a far cry from what the swivel-eyed Marxists at the Tottenham Hotspur Supporters Trust were talking up over the last few months. It was as if the whole thing, the industry was going to be regulated out of all recognition. Here's the key points, and I'll give you a bit of reaction. The UK government should create an independent regulator which should oversee financial regulation in football. I think this is probably not a bad idea in truth, but the regulator needs some red lines as to how much regulation will be inflicted upon clubs. Clubs which are, at the end of the day, legitimately run private businesses. And I think the key areas ought to be those sort of sensitive sort of pinch points where, you know, you have the issues come up of exploitative ticket prices and financial fair play issues there, just to make sure that anything to do with the money is done in the right spirit. And by that, I don't mean, you know, the politics of envy. I mean that it sure is for the good of the game, but also that making a profit isn't a bad thing. And sometimes I think people lose sight of this, and there's almost a feeling, a sense from some that successful big businesses need to be punished, need to be brought into line. And I'm thankful saying we don't live in a country that treats businesses like that. The independent regulator should establish a new fit and proper persons test to replace the existing system, which would also include an integrity test on potential owners and real-time financial checks. I think much of this is good. Interpreting the integrity of an individual or individuals is something that, you know, I'm always slightly conscious of, you know, who watches the Watchmen. We need more information. Transparency is our friend in these matters. So, you know, in essence, this all makes sense. Fans should be consulted on all key off-field decisions through a shadow board. Off-field, and again, this shadow cabinet needs to be strictly controlled. They are not the thought police, and the politics of envy must be excluded. Much of what Spurs Supporters Trust came up with previously can just go straight in the bin. I like the idea of there being a shadow board, but it must know its place, and you can't have you mustn't have this complicated or obfuscated in any matter. These people think they're actually running the business. That simply isn't on. These recommendations from the state only serve to demonstrate how indecently zealous the trust's ideas were, or at least so many of them were. Equality, diversity and inclusion plans should be mandatory for all clubs, or as those of us in the real world like to naively think of it, a meritocracy. I'm not going to bang on about this, but I don't care if you've got one leg and you're Welsh. Best person for the job, whether you're tall, short, fat, thin or yellow with pink spots, just hire the best people. Key items of club heritage should be protected by a golden share for fans. Translate that into English and get back to me. A new corporate governance code should be set up. Women's football should be treated equally and given its own review. I don't know that needs to be said. Hopefully we live in an age where women's football, no matter how many people are interested in it, is treated equally and given its own review. And by that, I mean, can't that be done by the same organisation? If you really want equity, if you really want to be assessed at the same level as the boys, then put the boys and girls together in the respect of this governance side of things. And I think this stuff is pretty dull, and these are bones to be tossed into the trust's food bowl. Stakeholders should work to increase protection of welfare of players leaving the game. I had an idea on this, but you know, so kind of bear with me. I haven't completely thought it through. But this might include an app that can walk players through money management. There should be support from the Premier League to the pyramid through a solidarity transfer levy. A stamp duty of sorts, this strikes me as, and I think in principle this is a fine idea. Many clubs will rail against this, but anything that kicks into touch all the mealy-mouthed generosity in kind twaddle that we have to suffer. The more the better. I mean, it's clear. I mean, we looked at the Tottenham finances. I've got a really long, detailed thing for the Swiss Ramble coming up later today. But if they're in trouble, if they're feeling the pinch, just wonder how the guys further down the food chain are. And I think clipping people as they spend money on transfers isn't a bad thing at all. But by the same token, it's how the pyramid would spend this windfall, and that would definitely require its own regulation. All of this activity needs to be strictly state controlled and must not be hijacked by the lunatics. I don't want anybody thinking that they're in charge. The government are elected by the vote, and the football clubs are private businesses. Let us not let anybody in by the back door. That to me is a really sensible way of operating. Looking ahead to tonight, Tottenham boss Antonio Conte will make changes to his side for Thursday's Europa Conference League game with the Slovenian side Enes Moura, Romero, Lo Celso and Bergwijn all out injured. I would take those three and Doherty into a very dark room and have a very short conversation with them. Need to get these people on the right page, and it's a page which at the very top says Tottenham Hotspur Football Club. Just remind them what they're here for and who brought them here. Sorry, it makes me really angry. They're just not available, and it's like they're playing if they're available, if nothing better is happening. Spurs are second in the group on 7 points, 3 behind leaders Rom, and with 2 games to go. And just from an episode of Making Life Difficult for Yourself, the group winners will go through automatically, and the runners-up will play a 2-legged playoff in February. So there you go. For us, this competition is important. We want to take this fixture seriously, said Conte. Spurs travel to Burnley in the Premier League on Sunday, and Conte added all the players available were making the journey to Slovenia for his fourth match in charge. I said on Sunday that I need to make rotation because there are players that are a bit tired because they played so many games with their national teams, and also we worked a lot in the last 2 weeks. There are other players that need game time. Moura have lost all 4 group games and cannot progress. They will be playing for pride and pride alone. The game is on BT Sport 2, and just a heads up, kick-off is 17:45, which is 5:45 in the old money. Good luck, keep it on them.